some people seem to make the judgment of like, of course, this is here and it's meaningful. So how do you shift from, of course, this is here, it means something, to, of course, this is here, and I can use a strategy to relate to it more effectively?
Right. And of course, that is exactly the question that gets people into trouble, which is this or this attribute of this is meaningful. And so this is when I'm trying to work with people in the session around signal versus noise. I need to decide ahead of time what my theme is that I am facing, and whether or not, if XYZ thought comes up, I'm going to faint or humiliate myself or die or whatever it may be. I need to have decided ahead of time, am I going to treat that as important or not? If it's noise, then I know what to do, which is, in the moment, I'm going to operate as though it's nothing. And in other words, act as though, take actions as though it's nothing. Because in the moment, I can't figure it out. I can't really know whether it is something serious or not. If I'm ambivalent around it being serious or not serious, I'm going to err on the side of it's serious. And so, because, if it's nothing, I don't have to do anything. But if it's serious, I've got to stop it, take action, protect myself, whatever it may be. And so we can't let the part of us that is feeling victimized by these thoughts and feelings be in charge at that moment. They need to be following the guidelines. That's why we talked a little bit about the rules that we have. So that's really important. One is to figure out what is a signal, something I have to do something about. Noise, it's nothing. Figure that out ahead of time, and then operationalize that in the moment, because it's too much otherwise. Do you feel differently, or what how do you talk about that?
Yeah, no, I think that was a really great description. And I think when I'm looking for when people, because I use pretty similar language to frame it up in the first place, I think I'm always thinking about when people are stuck, why are they stuck? And so the two things that tend to come up from my perspective, which I think Sophie and I also discussed, is sometimes it's getting caught in content where on some level people know that they have OCD or they have an anxiety disorder, and they have some sense of like, these are the types of triggers that tend to bother me either externally or internally, but like somehow for some reason this time it seems different, is where people get caught. And
Yep.
Or they might still be like, I know that this is my OCD, and also if I don't do something to make this go away, I'm going to be anxious all day. It could become something bigger. Why don't I just do something really fast to make it go away?
Right. And let me just reinforce what you're saying, because that's another, this is such a manipulative disorder if we're talking specifically about OCD, because it will say exactly what you're saying, which is I can handle it now, but if I don't settle it now, I'm going to be preoccupied all day tomorrow with it. I need to go ahead and get it over with to get it off my plate. And so that's one hook, trying to, as soon as you start lifting your eyes up into the future is typically controlled by the disorder. So we want to understand, if I get future oriented, I'm probably sunk at that point. I need to stay in the present moment. What do I need to do right at this moment?
And if I can just interrupt you for a second.
Let me say one more thing, and then you can interrupt, or you won't be interrupting, because I will have said whatever else I want to say. Is the other hook that tends to go with that is, this is only going to take a little bit to get me to settle this. The compulsion's only going to take 10 minutes, and then 4 hours later they go, okay, well, I was wrong about that. So go ahead, interrupt.
Sure. Yeah. I was just going to say, I frame that as anticipatory anxiety. So people might be familiar with what I'm saying is as soon as anticipatory anxiety gets involved, then you have a new problem. So I think what you're just saying, as soon as the future gets involved, then
And
you're going
so
to have
you,
trouble.
right, and you're familiar with the other corollary to that, which is, oh, it's only going to take me a little bit to do my compulsion, and then I'll be out of there. And so I can, I'm doing this all the time. Oh, well, then I'll be done. And it happens over and over and over again. It's like you discover that it's not true, that it's only going to take a little bit, but then you do it again as though it's only going to take a little bit. So there is a wheel that keeps spinning around that they need to identify and then intervene about.
Yeah, and I agree. Not only can it sometimes be something that you're thinking is only going to take a small amount of time and then it takes a longer amount of time, but also just like little checks throughout the day. So texting someone, looking at a picture, checking Instagram, checking emails that seem like maybe the person either in their mind or two other people convinces themselves that it's no big deal, or they're not doing it because of anxiety, but those things make your mind I guess more vulnerable to getting stuck on something bigger at another time.
And are you talking about little reassurances all day? Is that what you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so if we go back to the case of for Sophie in particular, so she would say most of the time she's not really, really stuck on a certain trigger, but if she has an intrusive thought about potentially being contaminated in some way, she might wash for like one extra time, or she might text a family member or her boyfriend just confirming that the situation wasn't dangerous or something like that. She and other people will sometimes timestamp through texting. So I'm just going to tell someone what I'm doing so that they know what I'm doing. So we know later that I didn't harm anyone, something like that, that can actually to the other person seem like a normal, non-compulsive way to check in, but
Yeah.
actually sneaks in as a compulsion.
Right. And I think another reason they do it is, or for some of that, is to go, well, and this happens in sessions with people all the time where I just have to hold my head still sometimes because they will run out a story. Well, I was merging into the traffic and I didn't really hear anything, but I felt something and I kept going, and they're looking for me to nod my head in agreement or have a furrowed brow like uh-oh. So they do these very subtle ways to get you to confirm with them that they did it properly. And so I think maybe for sometimes when they're sending these text messages and so forth, the position is, well, I'm going to explain this, and then if they think that's not good enough, they'll write me back and have a question about it. And so I'm not in it myself. And that is a reassurance ritual in some way.
Yeah. And so what's the problem with that from your perspective?
Well, I am not sitting with the uncertainty, and I have to sit with the uncertainty. I'm trying to get certainty, trying to get closure. And, how long is the feeling going to last? How long is, all of that is let me get closure and have this behind me.